Hey, everybody, and welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about a real hot topic, which is the Digital Nomad Visa, a relatively new visa in Spain, and also its interplay with tax. In the end, this immigration route to Spain and tax really go hand in hand for your planning for a move to Spain. We're going to talk about what the Digital Nomad Visa is, who it applies to. We're going to touch on the 2025 updates, what's new, what's coming out. We're also going to touch on the tax side, the fiscal side of this, and how Digital Nomad Visa might impact your tax situation in Spain. Quick intro, I'm James Blick, the founder of Spain Revealed. I've lived in Spain since 2011. I've built 2 businesses here. I have a beautiful family, and I help people move to Spain the right way, which I do through a combination of education, through courses, and also collaborating with fantastic experts like the 2 experts we have here today, Marina and Federico. So I'm going to kick off. Marina is the expert in immigration here, and Federico is the expert in taxes. So I'll let them introduce themselves. First, Marina, who's the co-founder of Bureaucracy, a firm that can help you get your digital nomad visa, as well as other legal routes, visas to live in Spain. And she's an immigration expert. So Marina, why don't you just briefly introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, James. You did fantastically the introduction. So yes, we have a company that help people from all over the world to relocate into Spain and live the Spanish dream. So we help them with all the bureaucratic paperwork to make it smooth and to have a successful life here in the country.
Perfect. Thanks, Marina. Now on to Federico. Federico, one of the leading cross-border tax attorneys in Spain, founder of Spanish Lawyer NYC. Federico, brief little introduction, and then we'll kick off.
Okay, thank you, James. Okay, my name is Federico Gonzalez. I'm the founder of GS Legal Consulting and also the website Spanish Lawyer NYC. I've been working as a tax advisor for over 30 years, and since 2015, I'm helping people from overseas moving to Spain with all the taxes that need to be compliant.
Perfect. Thank you, Federico. So before we dive in to this conversation, I want to give everybody just a little sense of the structure that we're going to follow. First, we're going to talk about the Digital Nomad Visa itself, what it is, who it applies to, 2025 updates. Marina is going to focus on that side, but I'll try and bring Federico in a few times to comment on the tax aspects that might come up. Then we'll move principally to the tax side, what it means to become a Spanish tax resident, how you become a freelancer here, the Beckham law, which is that tax regime whereby you can pay potentially a lower tax rates for a period of time in Spain. And I'll also bring in Marina to the extent that what we talk about in the tax touches on immigration. Then at the end, we're going to go over some questions that you have sent in about your situation or questions to help you understand. So should we kick off with part 1, number 1, which is digital nomad? So Marina, let's start with the basics. For someone watching who's from the US, UK, Canada, and has heard about the digital nomad visa, can you tell us what it is in simple terms? What is it and who is it designed for?
Well, this is a great way to settle in Spain because it's a visa that has a lot of flexibility, I'm going to say. So allows you to basically work remotely from Spain for international companies and also some Spanish companies sometimes. We can go deeper later on. And basically you can also bring your family and have access to the public healthcare system and public schools, educations, and etc. So this visa itself can be done directly at the consulate or coming to Spain as a tourist and submit application here, which is actually the best option. And the visa can be granted for 3 years. You can renew another 2 years and also apply for permanent residency or even citizenship. So it's a path to become a long-term resident in the country.
Perfect. And I mean, it's a great visa. 3 years ago, visa's been around for about 3 years. Before that, there really wasn't a clear route to come to work. And I mean, there are work visas, but they were more complex, difficult to get. You had to get a job offer. So really, in this way, you can keep your clients, you can keep your job, and set up life in Spain. And as you say, have access to to schools for your family. Your spouse can work
That's
as
right.
well. Actually, ironically, your spouse has more rights to work than you do. They can work in a local job, which is incredible, right?
This is something that I make a joke because it's like doesn't make sense, right? Well, welcome to Spain because this is the way that we are.
Yeah. Yeah. The digital nomad person can only work for their, clients or employer back home. Can't work for employers here, but your spouse can. Why don't we just take a moment, Marina? Do you want to just outline for us the key requirements? So obviously this is an income-based visa, but it's a little bit, I don't know if this is an international term, it's a New Zealand term, finicky, which means there's lots of details, right? And so what are some broad strokes on the details and the requirements somebody should know about?
So basically, you need to have a contract agreement with the clients or with your employer to really prove that you are having a professional activity. As well, this client or this company that you're working in must allow you to work remotely from Spain. So this letter that we provide must say that. Of course, to prove that you have enough financial means. So for the last 3 months, you need to make at least 2,800 euros. For example, if you are coming just yourself, this is going to increase according to the members that they are joining. And they need to see that there is a consistent amount. Even though there are sometimes you are a contractor, you are a freelancer, and your income fluctuates, must be consistent. This is important. And of course, the client, the company that you're working in, must prove that they have been doing business for at least 12 months. So they need to see that it's a real company. As well, your resume, 3 years of experience / a bachelor master degree with apostille. You need to have a clean criminal record for the last 2 years as well. And well, this is depends. If you are an employee, we need to check if your country is part of the Social Security agreement in order to obtain the certificate of coverage and also to have a private health insurance. Or on the other hand, if you are a contractor, 1099, you are going to pay taxes in Spain as autónomo and have access to the public health system.
And to be clear, you can apply obviously as a freelancer working for clients or as an employee working for an employer. One of the things that often catches people, Marina, is that if you are applying as a freelancer and your clients are just customers, they're not companies, that can be challenging, right? You have to find a route forward. Effectively, your clients must be companies, as you said.
So imagine that you are offering your services just to other individuals. It's not possible. This is not accepted
Yeah.
because those individuals don't have a business that we can prove that they have been paying their taxes and etc. for the last 12 months. So there are ways
Yeah.
that we can make it work because this is part of our job to make it work. But yes, it's not that simple.
Yeah. And you touched on the criminal record aspect, which you have to show countries you've lived in the last 2 years, but they can actually look back further at your entire record if there's issues in your past, right? But generally, it's a matter of degree, right?
Yes, the law states that they are going to check the last 5 years. So you need to have a declaration that you didn't do anything during the last 5 years and to have the actual criminal report with apostille for the last two. But if something happened 15 years ago, we need to have extra documents to verify that that case is sealed or it was a misdemeanor. So legal evidence that it was not that relevant and now it's closed.
People often ask about that, and it's like, what's the rule? And it's very much a judgment decision that they make about how long in the past and severity. Federico, I just want to bring you in briefly. I know we're not in the tax section yet, but what are the key couple of questions or doubts that people have about the tax aspect of this visa that we should make sure we mention at this stage, in this introductory stage, or anything you think it's important to mention?
Well, as Marina says, there is two types of visas, digital nomad visa. You can apply in the path of being a DNB/contractor or 1099, or you can be applying as a DNB/employee or W2 in the case of the United States. Only people coming in the path of being an employee can apply to the Beckham law. People who are contractors, 1099, business owners with effective control of the company, and the company it's a LTD or in UK or or even LLC or an X Corp in the United States, they cannot apply to the Beckham law. They need to go with the path of autonomo or self-employed and pay the Spanish Social Security as self-employed.
Yeah, that's an important one. We will touch on the Beckham law, and it's something people often hear about. Ah, digital nomad. There was a lot of fake news when it first came out that everybody gets discounted tax rates, and it's not true. That there is access to, as you mentioned, the Beckham law tax regime, depending on your circumstances, and it really is important to speak with a Spanish tax attorney before you move as part of your planning to understand if you can access that or not. And we will touch on that. No, so that's helpful. So, Marina, we've got what this visa is, you know, the broad requirements. This one thing about this visa is it's relatively new, and so every year we see new, not necessarily legal requirements, but new interpretations by the UGE, which is the authority that issues the visa or the residency if you apply in Spain. What are some of the current topics that are coming out? What are some of the changes that we're seeing that people need to be aware of?
Very important to know that, for example, if you have 3 years of experience, but you don't have a bachelor degree, of course, we are going to go through the route of 3 years of experience. But having a letter from your former employer is not enough. So you actually need to have records from the Social Security in the country that you have been paying taxes in. So they really need to have a legal document issued by the government that clearly says that you have been paying your taxes, and that's the reason that also you have 3 years of experience in that industry.
And it really makes sense in the end. If you think about it, sometimes it can get easy to get lost in the details of the requirements, but it's like you have to show one, that you have sufficient finances for you, you're earning enough for you and your family, if you're bringing your family or spouse. Two, that you have an employer who allows you to work in Spain or a clients, and that they are real and you just didn't create a company 2 weeks ago so that you could apply. And three, that you are qualified to do this thing, i.e. the bachelor's degree or the experience. And it used to be, I know that you could just have, as you say, a letter from your lawyer saying, John has been working with me as a web designer for 3 years, and that's not sufficient. Now it needs to be a little more, official, the documentation.
Exactly. And something that I would like to say, sometimes the main applicant have enough funds to support him or herself, but doesn't have enough money for the spouse. So we can have a combination of passive income as well, or even savings. But that amount must be pretty high. Sometimes I don't even mention this because it's about 90,000 euros extra on top of the salary. So I'm going to say that, this visa is a lucrative one. So you need to do a professional activity and get paid for it. Just in some cases, to combine savings or a pension or passive income is good, but don't take it like the usually pathway to follow.
No, I think that's important that, as I say, you have to be earning the money. Marina, before we move on to the tax area, is there anything you think it's important for somebody to know? They're learning about this for the first time. They've heard about it. Anything that's important, maybe healthcare, for instance, in terms of the health. I know, for example, if you're a freelancer, you can access the public healthcare, but if you're coming as an employee, you need to get private insurance. Anything you would else? Yeah.
Well, this is one of them, and I'm gonna say that it's important to have the full picture. So nobody likes surprises. So when you are moving to Spain, first of all, you need to become a legal resident in the country. We can help you with that. But the second part is you're gonna become a tax resident eventually. So you need to know about taxes and also immigration. It's a combination of both.
Really, really important. And it can be challenging. I'm going to bring you in, Federico, here, because sometimes people want to just talk to one person about everything. But in the end, immigration and tax are two different topics, but they go hand in hand, and you have to kind of coordinate. Obviously, like we are on this call, we all know each other, so we're able to coordinate. So Federico, tell us what it means to be a tax resident. What does that mean, or a fiscal resident, and how is that triggered?
Someone moving to Spain at some point, he becomes a tax resident. The main point is when the movement is done. And for that, I used to say that the day that counts is July the 2nd. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
if someone move after July the 2nd, potentially that person is going to be in Spain until the end of the year. So it's going to be less than 183 days. In that
Mm-hmm.
case, that person is not going to be tax resident this year, but the following year. But if that person arrives prior to July the 2nd, so maybe March, May, whatever, that person is going to be considered tax resident the year of the movement. Okay. And this is crucial because the person who is not a tax resident, that person will not be forced to pay taxes for the income obtained worldwide. Okay. There is a tiny difference for a non-resident with permanent establishment that we will be talking about later. But the main goal is if that person is tax resident in the year of the movement, this person will be subject to taxes in Spain worldwide for the full year. And if the person is not a tax resident, that person only will be taxed in the case that that person is doing a business in Spain.
And I think that's an important distinction also because if you become a tax resident, say, like you said, you move after July the 2nd, sorry, say before you move in March, for example, and in 2025, thus you are a tax resident for 2025, you're a tax resident for all of 2025. So if you sold your house or earned money in January, that could get captured by that, correct?
That's right. That's right. And that's why when I talk with my clients after been talking with Bureaucracy, I always explain them that for me, when if they are trying to realize some capital gains this year of the movement, it's much better coming after July, which I consider the soft movement because that person will be without doing taxes normally in Spain for a few months.
One other thing that I think it's important for people to understand, imagine you moved in August and you're like, great, I'm not a tax resident, but earlier in the year, you spent 2 months on a scouting trip in Spain as a tourist. Does all that time add up?
Yeah, it counts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you need, if in the case that you have been looking around for houses for 10, 20 days, you need to add those days to the date of movement if you don't want to become tax resident this year of the movement.
Okay, Federico, before we get into that thing you mentioned, which sounds very complex, which is the non-resident, non-tax resident with permanent establishment, because I think it sounds complex, and it is in a way, but it's really important for people to understand. I just want to come to Marina because we're talking, Federico, about timeline, and timeline applies to taxes, when you make the move and are you a tax resident, but timeline also is important to think about from the immigration perspective. So Marina, anything you would tell us about timeline, how to plan this move or things to keep in mind from a timeline perspective?
Yes, very important. So basically, some families they want to move during the summer after July the 2nd because they want to get ready for the school. So we submit application during August, and their visa is granted in September, 20 business days later. And they say, well, I'm not gonna register as a autonomous, self-employed until January because I'm not a tax resident during 2026, for example. And actually, this is not true, because they signed a letter of commitment that as soon as the visa is granted, they are gonna start paying taxes in Spain as autonomo. And these monthly payments happened monthly just right after you engage the tax system. So this is something that perhaps we can talk with Federico that not being a tax resident that year after moving in after July, but the implication that you have as autonomo right away.
I do want to make sure we do come back to general timeline as well, not from necessarily the tax perspective, like when should people apply? And because obviously if they apply in Spain, they have to come prepared to apply with all their documentation. So let's not forget that, but I don't want to lose the thread right now because this autonomo, it actually goes hand in hand with the non-permanent establishment thing. Let's just try and kind of pick it apart. So as you say, if you apply as a freelancer, part of your application is a promise to sign up as an autónomo, which is the legal term in Spain for a freelancer. It's a legal status that you sign up for effectively. And although you're not a tax resident potentially in that first year, you still have the obligation to pay Social Security taxes from the get-go. And you can't leave that. Otherwise, they could take your residency away. You have to start doing that straight away, right?
Actually, we had the case that some clients, just a few, they got their visa revoked and would need to reapply because they didn't pay those taxes. And the government said, "Hey, what is going on? Where you made a promise to us." So yes, this is very important.
So Federico, I want to bring you in. Anything you would say on that, like the signing up for the autónomo and what that implies?
Well, in the case that the person who is applying for DNB, it's an autonomo or self-employed, the first thing that he needs to do is make a tax form, say that he's starting a business activity in Spain. Then the person can go to the Social Security. But when that person make this tax form, she needs to say if she is a tax resident this year or she is not a tax resident this year. Okay, that's very important. If that person is a tax resident this year, that person will be enforced to do estimate taxes every quarter. That person will pay 20% of the net of the business every single quarter.
As a prepayment for income tax, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then later, when that person, when we prepare the final tax return, that person, we will know which will be the average tax rate applicable to that person. Maybe it's 32%. Okay. Then she already paid 20, and then now she needs to pay the other 12. Okay.
And that's the following year they would
Exactly.
do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for someone who is tax resident the year that she start doing the business in Spain, or for the following year for the people that came after July. But in the case that someone is not tax resident the year of the movement, and that person need to be registered for the Social Security, so the first thing it's gonna do is apply for the tax applications. That person will be enforced only to pay in Spain for the business that she has been doing for the months, the 2, 3, 4 months in the year of the movement. Okay, and the payment is only in one shot, and it's done in July 25.
July the following year. Yeah.
Yeah, it's similar to the corporate tax. The tax rate here it's a flat rate. It's 25%. And what Marina says is that the person who become a DNB commitment to be included in the autonomous situation, that person need to pay taxes. This is a non-resident with permanent establishment, in my opinion, for the full time that she has been working in Spain, right? Because otherwise, she can delay the registration. In that case, she's erasing tax base, and not paying this 25% of the net for the following year.
Yeah, it's and so to kind of pull the threads together, as we've said, if you're applying as a freelancer, when you have promised to sign up, for as an autónomo and pay Social Security when you arrive. So regardless when you arrive, regardless of tax residency, whatever, you must start doing that straight away. You get here, you sign up, and you start you register with Social Security with an accountant, for example. And then, as you say, Federico, and this is where there's a lot of conversation and confusion online. If I arrive in the second half of the year, people are often thinking, one, I'm not a tax resident, so I don't have to pay anything, which is false. As you said, you have to pay tax on your Spanish income you're earning here. It's coming from overseas, but you're living in Spain, so you have to pay that 25%. Or people sometimes think if I move in the second half of the year, and I sign up as an autónomo, as I have to do, that makes me a tax resident. And as you said, in your opinion, tax residency is dictated primarily by the date of the move. And really what it means is, like, if you're a tax resident for, say, 2025, you're paying on worldwide income. And if you're just a tax resident in Spain because you moved in the second half, you're paying only on the stuff earned in Spain. Then the following year, you will become a tax resident. No, that's clear. And this is, and I know this can feel confusing because often Social Security, there's a lot of people who do think that if I sign up for Social Security, somehow that forces tax residency, and that would seem logical. But again, the tax residency test does not talk about that. It talks about time. And that's the key factor. But it doesn't mean you have to just ignore taxes. That's the trap, to think like, I'm not a tax resident, I don't have to do anything. No. You still have to pay taxes. You still have to sign up for Autonomo. So Federico, I want to go over to this Beckham law, which you mentioned, which is this tax regime, right? Where effectively you can pay a lower rate. What is it? Who does it apply to? Let's start with that.
The Beckham law applies to people that move to Spain with connection with a job. Okay, prior to 2023, when this program starts, only allows people coming with a Spanish job or that has been posted to the Spanish subsidiary. But in 2023, this digital nomad situation applies, and now we have more wide situation of people that can apply. Not only people moving to a Spanish with a Spanish contract, but also remote workers that are employees and not contractors, and also people that come to Spain as appointed as a director of a company in Spain. At some point, they can create a business here and be appointed as a director. In some cases, they can apply, okay, as well. And there is only two type of situation for contractors to be included in the Beckham law, but these two situations are very rare. Because you need to have the authorization of entity called ENISA to create a business with a business plan that makes something with the interest for the Spanish government.
Often digital and often startup-y and things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or if you are a contractor working for a startup entity that has been approved by this authority called ENISA.
So Beckham law, special tax regime, not generally applicable to keep people coming as digital nomad freelancers, but yes, those coming as employees. What are the benefits? What do we get from the Beckham law if we sign up?
The main benefit for people that comes from with the Beckham law is that instead of the progressive tax rate applicable to those people who are starting at 19% and goes up and up to 47%, that people is going to be taxed for the work income at a flat rate of 24% for the following 6 years. The second benefit is that people in the Beckham law will be not forced to pay taxes for the financial income or any other type of income which is not connected with the job. If that income or that source of income, it's from overseas. Okay, only for the financial income with the Spain. Okay.
That's a big one. So if you've got investments overseas, for example, you're not paying tax on that. You're only paying that 24% on your local earned income or any investments in Spain.
Right. Imagine that you have a lease, an apartment, and you decide not to sell it and just make a lease. All this income is not going to be taxed in Spain. That's not taxed here. It's going to be taxed, of course, in the country where the income is created, but not in Spain.
And I'm glad you mentioned that lease, because maybe after, and this brings in capital gains as well. What if after 3 years I decide to sell that building in Chicago, whatever, and I'm still under the Beckham law? I don't pay capital gains, right? Because it's an overseas investment income.
That's right. So you put a barrier, okay? So anything that is not connected with the job is not going to be considered income in Spain.
Yeah. So I pay 24% on that local, I still pay tax in Spain, but it's at that flat rate. Now, I have to be earning a certain amount of money for it to make sense, right? Because as you say, the progressive rates are 19 to 47, effectively staggered rates, depending on how much you're earning. It's the standard tax rates. But if I'm earning if I'm under the Beckham law, it only makes sense over a certain threshold of income. It only save money potentially.
Well, it depends. It depends. Okay, so as I told you, when these two benefits are important, but there is also a new benefit that it's very important, and it's that people that came here with the Beckham law, they are not going to be enforced to pay well tax.
On anything overseas, obviously, if you have wealth in Spain, yeah.
So if you only are talking about for income perspective, that person need to understand that the 24% flat rate is going to be applicable to her in the case that she earns more than around 50,000 euros. Okay, but and I have some clients that the importance for the Becca law is not paying the 24%, is that they are not paying for other sources of income that they have overseas, or they are not paying the wealth tax in the case that they are moving to a region in which the wealth tax is an issue.
Important point. Yeah, people focus on the income element, but as you say, and maybe this is not in digital nomad situations, but if you earn 30,000 euros because you're effectively retired, but you, as you say, you have all this this wealth, you can protect that. You can protect that wealth. If you're in, if you obviously the Beckham law is people moving as a connection to a job, but if you have a low income but you have high wealth, it still can be relevant, and it's worth considering.
Yeah, and also there is one thing that I want to mention. Okay, and it's the companion of the DNB or the companion of the people who applies to Beckham. Prior to 2023, uh, every single person who applies to the Beckham law needs to have the requirement to apply, and the spouse uh, will be in the general tax regime. Okay, but in 2023, things changed, and now the companion um, uh, she will be able to get the same benefits of the Becca law and for the same period. Of course, the person need to have the or accomplish the same some requirements and not be included in the exclusions to be in the Becca law. But I think that's a very important change because otherwise uh, it will be like a mess. One person will be applying for the Beckham law and for the special tax regime with all the benefits that I told you, but the other one will be in the ordinary tax regime and paying for the income worldwide, paying for the wealth tax, and also the.
Yeah. I do want to come back to you, Marina, and just talk about timeline because we touched on that, just the general, timeline for applying for digital nomad before we get into the Q&A. But before I go to you, you don't get away that easily, Federico. I do have one other Beckham law sort of comment just to hear you. Obviously, this is something we apply for once we're in Spain. But like we've said about digital nomad, yeah, you can apply for it in Spain. And it, just for clarity, you've called it the DNV, which is what a lot of people call it. Americans listening might be hearing DMV, which is like the driving authority. But yeah, DNV is digital nomad visa. So Federico, when somebody, I guess, needs to think about this planning before they move, right? They need to be talking to you or tax attorney maybe 6 months before they move, a year before they move, so that they understand these implications and maybe get an estimation of what the taxes would be. Can they apply for Beckham law? Like, just tell us a little bit about that planning aspect.
Well, yeah, normally most of the clients that I have, they contact me a few months prior to the movement. Most of the time, that person first talk with the immigration expert, like
Mm.
Marina, and after that, they start talking with me.
That's helpful. So they understand, can I get the digital nomad visa? Then, okay, what are the tax implications? Can I get the Beckham law? Okay.
Some of the time that after my appointment with me, we restructure when is going to be the time that the person need to apply. Okay, because sometimes they say, she say, okay, I'm going to apply maybe February or March. But when I've been talking with her, and the client says, okay, I'm going to do some capital gains, then I say, maybe it's it's the best option that you talk again with Marina and the team and start to do this process not for the first semester but for the second.
Yeah, for the second half of the year. No, I'm glad you brought that up. How, who somebody should speak to first? Well, Marina, now that we're on timeline and before we get to question and answer, what would you say about the timeline? When should somebody contact you to talk about the digital nomad visa? When should they apply? How does this work?
Yes, we always advise our clients that contact us 6 months in advance because we need to plan and we need to gather documents while they are living in the country. In their home country. Never contact us while you are already tourists in Spain because we need to gather a lot of documents with apostille and takes time. So yes, 6 months in advance is advisable. So also something that we have identified is our clients who have families, they have children, they usually contact us even 8 months in advance. And I think it's good because they need to work on logistic as well. They need to work about bringing the kids to the school, finding the place. So they need to have a established home when they arrive. So 8 months is also advisable because also they are going to be talking to Federico about how it's going to be the tax situation before. So yeah, between 8 to 6 months, I will say that is the best.
And really, it's never too early, particularly given the tax side can take time to understand. But also just know that things can change and things are often in flux, and that can be, you might get certain advice that's applicable now. It might change in 6 months, and things can shift. So I think that's important to keep in mind.
Exactly.
Right?
And this is a very good point because basically we have a lot of applications. The law itself doesn't change, but the interpretation does, as you well said before, James. So we are going to be notifying our clients if something happens, and we have the time to redo and to plan the path in a different way to have a successful outcome. So yes, planning ahead is always welcome.
Next, I want to jump over some questions that the audience sent in. We're going to chop and change. We're going to go immigration tax, immigration tax. First of all, immigration. This is for you. For 20 points, Marina. No, we're not playing Jeopardy. I'm in the process of moving into medical content writing and online life coaching. This is what someone asked. I have a medical degree which qualifies me for the writing, and I'm getting a diploma in transformational coaching. Would the diploma qualify me for the coaching part of what I want to do, or would I need 3 years experience? So is the diploma going to be enough? Because we talk often about bachelor level degrees required.
Yes, basically this document must be apostille, which means that it must be issued by an official entity in the country that you are studying. So otherwise, 3 years of experience we need to use. So it must be official document.
So the diploma is enough.
Yes.
And the diploma is enough. And it can't be a certificate I got from some online course that I just print out or something. It has to be, as you say, from a recognized educational authority, etc. Is there any complication here just around the medical degree and writing? I know that some professions are controlled or regulated in Spain, including being a doctor, meaning if I want to work as a doctor in Spain, I have to have passed certain exams and, have degrees. Now, if I'm coming here, this person is coming to work on the coaching aspect, but also the medical writing. Medical areas are regulated, but they're not coming to be a doctor. Is there any danger there? Do they need to clarify anything to make it clear they're not going to be working as a doctor?
Yes, of course. We need to have a notarized letter from this client that states that he's not going to do any professional activity regarding to medicine or law, any regulated profession in Spain. So yes, we have plenty of psychologists, doctors, and lawyers living on the digital nomads in Spain.
Okay, jumping over to you, Federico, in the hot seat. This is a question that comes up a lot, and I know it depends, but people often say, how much taxes am I going to pay when I move to Spain? I see things on Facebook with people worried they're going to pay 50% of all their income in income tax. Give us a little bit of clarity. Obviously, everybody's tax rates will be different, but help us understand a little bit, or at least calm us that it's maybe not as scary as people might think?
We need to distinguish between the ordinary tax regime or the special tax regime.
The Beckham law, yeah.
Yeah. In the case that the person moving to Spain is in the ordinary tax regime, and for example, she's a DMB and she's a contractor and she's doing business in Spain, the person is going to be taxed at the end of the year in a progressive way, starting in 19% and going up in a progressive way with different brackets, up and up and up until 47%.
That's key because people think it's 47% on everything if I earn 200,000 euros, but it's not.
It's progressive. So the first bracket you will be taxed in 19. The following bracket you will be taxed this in a progressive way until the last amount, which will be after 60,000 euros, in which you will be in the last bracket.
Obviously, how do I, tell us a little bit about sort of tax simulations, estimations, because people might be wondering, well, okay, that's fine, but if I only find out how much tax I'm going to pay after my first year as a tax resident in Spain, or year and a half once I've filed my taxes, maybe I need to know beforehand so I can see if I want to make this move or not. So what do you recommend for people in those situations?
That's why I recommend people having a conversation with Marina first or me to understand all the path that's gonna be happen, not only when they arrive, but in the following years. So one of the things that I do for my clients is prepare a tax simulation. If after the conversation that I have with them, it's clear that this estimation have a sense. Okay, because the case that the person come with the Beckham law, it doesn't matter. It's going to be 24%.
It's very clear. Yeah. It's a simple calculation. Yeah.
And if we are talking about someone which the payment is not so important or so high, maybe it's not an option to do a tax simulation. So it depends of every single client if it makes sense or not, and also if we need to do the tax simulation of the wealth tax as well. Okay? So I do, and I prepare these tax simulations. So I ask them for some figures and some sources of income and prepare that in advance.
That's helpful. So first talk to you and understand, could I be Beckham? Could I not be Beckham? Or if it's low, the income, you don't even need to do the tax estimation because you can probably, the official one, you can give them an idea, look, it's not going to be too much or whatever it may be. It may not be worth paying for the tax estimation. But if it is worth it, it'll also wealth tax they might pay on wealth overseas. Also depends on the region they're moving to. Some regions have wealth tax, others don't effectively. So a lot of variables.
Yeah, and also we need to have one thing clear that the people that are coming to Spain, they want to be in Spain, and not only life is taxes. You know?
Yeah.
So sometimes they say, okay, I don't need a tax estimation because I'm gonna be here. But so that's after the call, the preliminary call that we have, we can the client will identify if he needs to do the tax simulation or not.
And something you have mentioned in the past, if we consider tax as a part of cost of living in a broad sense, then we have to look at it globally, right? Both what does it cost you to pay your rent or buy your food? Is that lower than when you're coming from? And property tax is a big one. I know particularly people coming from the US pay really high property taxes. But as I think you've said to me before, relative to many people overseas, property taxes in Spain are peanuts,
Right. Yeah, when I talk with my clients coming from the US, they most of the time they say, okay, I'm gonna be paying more taxes in Spain than I used to pay in the United States. And I say, okay, that depends, right?
Yeah.
So if you are talking only for the personal income tax, that's for sure, because in the United States, maybe a salary of 100,000, it's very common. Here in Spain, 100,000 is not. But at the end, you need to see the full picture, right? So it's called consider the tax pressure that you're gonna have. Okay, Because, for instance, if you have a home, and as you already mentioned, the property tax here is nothing comparable with the property tax that you pay in the United States. And also, if you go to Whole Foods, and I always put this example, you're going to be paying incredible um, taxes, say tax, here in Spain. As the prices are lower, you're going to pay that. So at the end, you need to see which is the tax pressure that you're going to have, and which is the money that that you have after all this pressure, if you're going to have a regular life here in Spain.
Yeah. Healthcare is another one that can potentially be a lot cheaper here in Spain. So I want to jump back to you, Marina. Another question that came in: can one study part-time while on the digital nomad visa, either as the primary or secondary earner, so as the main applicant or as the spouse?
It's a yes. So it's not a problem to study.
As long as you fulfill the requirements. If you're the primary applicant, you have to fulfill the income requirements, etc.
You need to study, but also work at the same time as the main applicant, as a spouse dependent. Well, you have way more freedom, as we spoke before. So yes, the answer is a yes.
One more tax question, then we'll do one more immigration question. Federico, savings. People are sometimes wondering about, and I know this is a very complex topic, so just like the headlines. Will my savings be taxed? Some clients have pension funds that are their investments. What's the situation with this stuff?
All right. So here we also need to distinguish between the ordinary tax regime and the special or the Beckham law regime. The person who arrives and become tax resident is in the ordinary tax regime, that person is going to be taxable for the income obtained worldwide, even for the savings.
Yeah, 401k drawdowns, whatever. I mean, they're not going to be retired. Obviously, they're going to be working. But if you have investments, so that's a bad example. But if you have investments that you're drawing down some income, yeah, you're going to.
There you have interest, dividends,
wealth tax.
So the gains, you're going to be taxed here, and you can mitigate. If, for example, if you are in the United States, you still need to file taxes in the US. But the money that you already pay here, you can use that as a foreign tax credit and mitigate or eliminate the 1040. So, but if you are in the Beckham law regarding the savings, as I already mentioned before, if those savings are overseas, are not going to be taxed in Spain.
No wealth tax. Yeah, no, exactly. No
No
financial
tax, no financial income. Nothing is going to be taxed.
Worth thinking about, because you might be working here in Spain as a freelancer digital nomad. Thus, you are not able to access the Beckham law, and you have investments overseas, a Roth IRA, whatever it may be that you're saving for the future. You have to be careful around that, because the wealth tax can capture those, correct, if they are sufficiently high. So again, another reason to do a tax estimation to see how your overseas savings or retirement funds, investment funds are going to be impacted, if at all, by the region you move to and things like that. You mentioned one thing before we go back. I really want to make sure people hear this, because it's such a common question and it's got a simple answer. This is for the Americans watching, those from the United States. People are like, where do I file my taxes first? Because obviously, if I'm from the United States, I have to be a tax resident as long as I'm a citizen. So I'm a tax resident in Spain and I'm a tax resident in the US. It's a simple kind of 3-step process, I think. So tell us how that works on an annual basis. Where do I file first and what do I do? Briefly.
Okay, yeah. So here the tax season ends in June 30th. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you need to pay for your income obtained worldwide, right? So what I do with them with my U.S. clients, they still need to file taxes in the U.S. and the tax season is in April. So what are they going to do? They will ask they will request an extension in the U.S. They will file taxes first in Spain. They will pay here for the income obtained worldwide, and they will use the money already paid here to deduct or mitigate the taxes pressure in the United States.
To get a foreign tax credit. So yeah, you pay in Spain first, or you file in Spain first, but you've gotten an extension because of the mismatch of timing. Okay, that's helpful. Let's wind up with you, Marina. Is there anything I can prepare in advance before we begin working on the visa? Is there anything just people should know? And I think it might be worth touching on, you mentioned you can apply via a consulate back home or in Spain. Why would I do one or the other? You said it's better usually to apply in
Yes.
Spain. What are some of the benefits of that? And this is kind of the planning
Well,
side.
when you come to Spain, the only thing that you need, well, is to gather the documents in advance. This is part of our job, to get translations and also to get the government fees paid. So you come to Spain, you got to stamp your passport, or eventually we will see how you do that with the new system that is not into place yet. And Wes, we submit application on your behalf. So you can land in Madrid, and Barcelona, Valencia, any city. The application is going to be submitted on your behalf electronically by our team and wait 20 business days. So the resolution is pretty fast, can be granted for 3 years. Most of the cases is granted for those 3 years. And
Yeah.
it's quite flexible, the landing into Spain versus applying at the consulate, that you need to go twice. First of all, to get the NI number, and later on to apply for the visa itself. The visa can be granted within 3 months, and the only is going to be granted for 1 year. So it's way
Shorter.
yes, you get more benefits if you apply within Spain. And most of our clients, they have a strong passport that they can come to Spain and just submit the application. And some clients that they are from other countries, they get a Schengen visa in the first place, come to Spain, and we submit.
And I'm glad you mentioned, and I do want to just touch on this before we wrap up. You mentioned applying in Spain. I think it's important to clarify, I don't have to have moved by then. Maybe I've got family back home and things like that. I can come and apply. I have to be here on the day of the application, which obviously you would take care of. Then I can go back and wait for the confirmation and then move all my stuff, assuming I get
This is what we do with families. So that's why 8 months in advance works, because they tell, okay, I want to move, I want to be in July, August in Spain, really settled for September when the school starts. Okay, let's come in April. So you come, do a scouting trip in April. All the family must be in person in Spain. We submit application, come back to the US after a week, for example, wait for the resolution while you're in the US, and later in summer, you move with everything. The luggage, the pets, everything all together. So that's why.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that, Marina. So yeah, I think, I just want to let everyone know, obviously we've touched on a lot of topics here. This is more, this inherently is an introduction to just give everybody an idea of the implications of the digital nomad visa, what it is, the tax aspect. But every case is different, and if you want to work with Marina or Federico and their teams, then you've got some links down below in the description to the video where you can click to get in touch with them and work with them. And I know, Marina, if you come, click on that link, you can get a 10% discount as well in working with you for the digital nomad visa, also non-lucrative visa. Marina and Federico, let's wrap up. Is there anything you would like to say just to finish?
Well, thank you so much. I think it's a video that I wanted to do for a long time, and now because taxes and immigration, they are hand to hand. So yes. So thank you so much, Federico, and also James, for your knowledge.
Perfect. Federico, thank you for your time.
No, thank you. Thank you, James. It's always a pleasure working with you and also with Marina and Bureaucracy. Okay, keep in touch.
Perfect. And I think what the beauty is also often when you're working with different people, if they know each other, obviously tax and immigration go hand in hand, it provides a certain synchronicity if, Federico and his team know Marina and her team, which just helps the communication, because these things are separate but can't be treated separate because they're intertwined. So if you want to contact either of them, you've got some links down below. Thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that. And we'll see you in Spain.